Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It has been such a long time since I've done a book video that I went back and looked, and actually the last book video I did, I took down. Not sure why I did that, but I thought, you know, I've been doing my travel vlogs. Please ignore the construction happening. This is the only time I could film this video. But anyways, I've been so on my like travel vlog, writing vlogs that I haven't really had time to do anything else, but I really want to do some more book stuff. So that's why today I am, that's why today I am reading for 24 hours. Now, if you're familiar with me, you kind of know I always fail on my like 24-hour straight challenges because I'm a sleepy girl. I get tired. I am also now a working adult. You know, if you've followed along with my vlogs, I graduated in May with my doctorate in physical therapy. I am a physical therapist, so if you are my patient, do not watch my videos, please. But I am a working person, so I don't have the luxury of having a day where I can stay up for 24 hours and ruin my sleep schedule. So I'm gonna do a little bit of kind of a twist on it, right? So I'm gonna be reading for 24 hours. And what I mean by that is I'm gonna set myself a timer as I read, and I'm going to try to add up to 24 hours, which I think is kind of interesting because, you know, most audiobooks are kind of like 8 hours, 9 hours, or if you're on Kindle, it'll tell you like this book you can finish in 10 hours. So I kind of want to see, it's a little bit of an experiment to see, you know, what I can get done in 24 hours. But also just an effort to make me read more, because I get into like hobby slumps where it's like, this month I'm really gonna I'm a reader this month I'm a writer. This 3 months I play Stardew Valley every day in my free time, but we're getting back into reading, okay? So this is my Kindle. I recently got it in September as like a little gift for myself for getting a job, right? And this really cute case, first of all, why do Kindles have ads on the front? The one that didn't have ads was $20 extra, and I was like, no way, like I don't need to pay $20 extra just so there's not ads on the front. I should have done it. Anyways, this is the really cute Kindle cover. I think I got it from, I think it's called April, that's the brand. I do know it's an influencer's brand because I follow her on TikTok. Her name's Emmy Trounce, I think. I will find whatever it is, but they have very cute cases. This is like their picnic blanket one, but they have really cute ones with bows and stuff on it, so check those out. But yeah, so what I'm reading right now is, let me look up the name. All right, currently what I'm reading, if you can see, is called Summoned to the Wilds. It is the second book in the Villains and Virtues series. The first one, Thrown in the Dark, was so good. Like by the time I finished it, I was sad that I hadn't started this video sooner so that I could like talk about it, because it was so good. I've been describing it to people as like a dark fantasy rom-com. It's one of those really good ones where there's like a journey that needs to happen. It's like kind of, I don't want to say like, it's definitely not enemies to lovers, more like, you know, villain gets the girl type of thing. But I'm a little stressed out because the first book was so good and there's 2 more books. So I'm like, what the hell happens in the next 2 books if the end of the first one was so good? There's a lot going on right now. Like there's construction out there and my cat's playing with her favorite toy, which is plastic. And I just can't take it away from her because it's the only thing she plays with, but. Anyways, so I'm really excited to read the second book and just the rest of the series in general, so I can kind of, I'm thinking about doing like a TikTok review to like recommend it to people because it was chef's kiss. It was so good. I'll talk about it more. But so I think my general plan for this video is that I'm going to set a timer, whether it's like 30 minutes, an hour. I do kind of have a short attention span even when reading, so probably more like 30 minutes, but I think I'll do kind of a periodic check-in to say like, oh, okay, I've read for this many hours total, here's where I am, here are my thoughts. But yeah, so the goal of this video is to finish this book and start on hopefully 1 or 2 more. So I'll check in with ya. Alright, so I actually have to go somewhere in about an hour, so I think realistically I can get 30 minutes of reading in. So let's go for it. I'm gonna start a counting up timer, okay? Let's go. So I just finished 30 minutes and I read 29 pages because I do get distracted. I don't read a page a minute. I just kept getting a little bit distracted. But this is like the problem, is that I wish I had more time to just like sit down for hours and read, because I have to go somewhere, but I don't want to because the book is getting really good. But I was on page 58 when I started and I'm on page 87. And I'm not gonna give an update like every 30 minutes. I'll probably give like a bigger update, but that was my timer saying I needed to get ready to go. But yeah, I will see you next time I check in. Alright, this is a horrible angle and horrible lighting, and I am in my big shark blanket, but I just have to talk about this book. I don't want to give spoilers because it is the second book in the series, but if you are a fan of like the yearning, slow burn, like read this series, this man, like his name's Damien, that's not a spoiler, it's the main guy's name, he like physically has to give the girl something like to prevent him from getting near her. He's like, you need to hold on to this, otherwise things are gonna happen, right? And it is so good, like quite literally like gnawing at the bars of my enclosure because I cannot read this book fast enough, and like I keep having to take breaks to sit it down and walk away. So if you weren't convinced like just by me saying it was like Billy gets the girl, like just that, but you're a slow burn yearning girl, go read this book. Alright, so I'm 2 hours into this whole thing, and I say like 2 hours very loosely because what I've been doing is every time I start reading and I sit down, I just start my stopwatch that's counting up, right? I'm not doing the counting down anymore. And I'm reading this scene right now that I have to keep pausing. Literally, I would read like a sentence, go pause the timer, take a breath, reset the timer, go read it again, because it's just like way too much for me. It's crazy, but it's like good but bad, and we're only 40% of the way through the book, so I'm like nervous, you know what I mean? But I cannot, unless all this like goes downhill, I cannot like recommend this series enough. At least the first book, and so far the second book is holding it. So yes, I'll check in with you guys in a few more hours. I'm checking in just shy of the 5-hour mark, and that book was so good. I think I liked it better than the first book. It's kind of hard to tell because they're both really good, but the yearning in this one, the yearning, like, I just can't, like, oh my god, it's so good. And what's really funny is I loved the first book, so I recommended it to a bunch of my patients, and it does get a little spicy. Nothing like super crazy spicy yet. I assume that's gonna be in the third book. But like, I should really read all the way through the series before recommending it to other people. But 100% go read the series. I'm gonna probably have to take a little bit of a break from starting the third book, just because I know, like, the moment I start reading it, I'm gonna need to finish it in one go, kind of like I did this one. Like, this morning I was on 30% of the book and I just finished it. So yeah, I will check back in with y'all afterwards, okay? Yesterday was my birthday, and last month my Nana came to visit and brought me my birthday gifts, which were, of course, a bunch of books, because she knows me very well. So this was the first gift, right? It is a bunch of Jane Austen books with gorgeous covers. I probably have, in this room right now, I have 4 copies of Persuasion, right? I don't know if you can see those books right there. 2 copies of Persuasion right there. And then we have Northanger Abbey, Sense and Sensibility, little peacock on the Pride and Prejudice, another peacock on Mansfield Park, and my 3rd copy of Persuasion, right? I am missing Emma, but that's because she kept it for me to unwrap when I go home for Christmas, because she brought my Christmas gifts. This is the true star of the show. It is my 4th copy of Persuasion, but first of all, she said, I couldn't resist buying this, just had to read Captain Wentworth's letter to Anne. I thought it said Jane for a second. I was like, Nana, what? And then it says, you can see page 150. And then look, so there's like, this is in, I'm not gonna like, oh. Anyways, so like it has these like handwritten, not all of them are handwritten, but it has stuff from the story. Like this is, oh, so this is like the naval list that they have, that they're like looking for Captain Wentworth's ship on it. And then if you go to page 150, so it's like some handwritten letters in like these little folders. I haven't looked through all of them yet, but here's page 150. And this one I have opened. And this is what it looks like, right? And, oh my god. And then when you unfold it, it is quite possibly the most romantic love letter in all of history. I would say I know most of it by heart, but only the stuff that is recited in the 1995 version of Pride and Prejudice. I said Pride and Prejudice, oh my god, sorry. Persuasion. I do love Pride and Prejudice. That is one of my favorite movies. but I definitely prefer Persuasion. But the thing is, I wouldn't really recommend the 1995 version unless you're a fan of like British TV and British movies, because there's just a way it's filmed that I don't think a lot of people would be able to get into. And if you watched the gorgeous 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice, which, listen, I know it's not like super like true to the story, right? But you have to admit, it's visually gorgeous and it's such an easy watch and it's such a good introduction into Jane Austen that I only really recommend the 1995 version of Persuasion to people that I know would actually enjoy it. But we are not talking about that version with Dakota Johnson. We're not talking about it. We're not talking about it. All right, I just wanted to show off how cool that was. Thanks, Nana. Okay, so this isn't really a check-in, but I am 6.5 hours into this challenge. Sorry, the lighting is terrible, my bed's not made, but I just had to come and say something. Oh my god, I'm in the 3rd book of the Villains and Virtues series, and I need people who have read this to sound off in the comments, because I'm 30% of the way through. I'm not gonna sweat, they're at the Oracle, and he just said, you. I feel like I need to go, like, run. I need to go, like, run a mile or something. Like, oh my god. I've been, like, rolling around on that bed, screaming. Like, thank god my roommates have left the house, because I am making a commotion. Okay, I'm done. I will check in again, definitely, but oh my god. Hello, as you can see, we have another scene change. That's just because I'm home for the holidays. But obviously, you know, I took however many hours to get here, so I was reading a ton on the plane. I think this is kind of like the 10-hour check-in. I need to do a full video on that trilogy, the Villains and Virtues trilogy, because oh my god, like, I was squirming in my seat, like, trying to, like, not freak out while I was reading and be like a normal human being on the plane. It was so good. Like, I don't want to say too much about it because, like I said, I do want to really do, like, a full video on it, but there's just something about, like, the 3-book lead up, the slow burn, the villain gets the girl, the villain becomes, like, pieces of him become part of her, so he's good, and so good. Like, so there's 3 books in the main story and then 2 books in the side story. I don't want to read those 2 side books right now. I want to kind of, like, let the series marinate. I'm not even joking. This is, like, the first thing I've read in a long time that's, like, I'm 25. I'm like, I want to write fan fiction about this. Not even, like, to change the story, but, like, to continue, just because I love these characters so much. I won't be doing that. I'm too busy to be doing that. But it just reminds me of when I was a kid. And, like, you know those little nighttime scenarios you make up in your head to, like, help you fall asleep? Like, they were always about, like, the fan fictions I was writing, and I'm like, I got some new material for nighttime now, like, to lay my little head down and do a little continuing the journey. But oh my god, I cannot describe how good it was. Please go read it. I will read the 4th and the 5th because they're different characters at some point, just not right now. So for my next book, I feel like when I read a series, I can't jump right into another series, so I want to do a standalone. And I do kind of have a personal rule for myself, like, you know, if I read a fun book, I should read, like, a more, like, serious, lit fic, maybe non-fiction book, just so my brain doesn't turn to, like, complete mush. But I tried to start The Prophet while I was on, can't remember who the author is, while I was on the plane, and I think I was just riding the high so much from finishing the 3rd book in the Villains and Virtues series that
it wasn't really working for me and I couldn't really focus because I was thinking about the book still. So I'm probably gonna give it a little bit more time, but while I'm home for the holidays. It's a very short book, so I'm expecting to finish it in like maybe an hour. Hello? Alright. I will check in with you guys later. Alright, so I just finished The Prophet a few minutes ago. It only took me an hour, so it's a really good kind of quick one sit-down read. I personally felt it was a little heavy-handed, kind of too on the nose, but I think it's, you know, very philosophical. It's poetry. If you're a fan of philosophy and poetry, you might like it a little better than I did. I kind of feel like I was treating it as like a, I don't want to say palate cleanser, because I did really enjoy, obviously, the series that I was reading, but kind of wanted to, I guess, yeah, palate cleanser, kind of move on from a series. Next I'm going to be reading, I think I'm going to be reading The Graveyard Apartment, so it's going to be kind of a big shift from, you know, like, how I've been describing the last series is kind of like a dark fantasy rom-com, then to like a philosophical poetry book, to now, I think it's like horror or thriller, so that's the plan. But I kind of only gave The Prophet 3 stars just because when I'm reviewing a book, or when the way that the star system works in my head is that every book starts at a 3 out of 5 stars, and then it either works its way up and down. I don't really have any like guidelines, like this book has to hit this to be a 5-star, to be a 4-star, but I just go off of vibes, you know? So I think I would give The Prophet a 3 stars. Meanwhile, I give that whole series together, the one that the Villains of Virtue series, a 5. So we'll see how I feel with this next book, but I'll check in again later. It is Christmas Eve though, so might be a little bit before I check in with you guys again. Alright, sorry for the lighting. I thought I'd be able to finish The Graveyard Apartment before the sun went down, but I did not. So this is what we're dealing with. But anyways, so I did just finish The Graveyard Apartment. I'm at 15 hours in this challenge right now. It's more like an experiment rather than a challenge, but anyways. There's just something about Japanese horror that just unsettles me so much more than American horror, and I don't know what it is. I think because I'm very, like, ghosts are my jam. Like, I'm not really a big into like the demons or gore or like monsters when it comes to like American horror movies, but I love a good ghost story or like a good ghost movie. Oh, keeps going in and out of focus.
So that being said, when I was younger, like talking like middle school, probably early high school, I'm a manga reader. I just simply am. But back then I was crazy into like staying up to all hours to read it, and there was one series, I use it loosely, yeah, series, called Sekyo Gakyo. Listen, I'll put it like right here, a picture of the cover and what it's called. But it's basically about this like girl. Well, it's not even about a girl. I think it's called like School Lessons or something. Like that's the English translation. Basically, there's this girl. She's a ghost. It's her upper half of her body, and she's like, "Hey, settle in for lesson 1 for this crazy ghost story I'm about to tell you." And then you go into this world. You read a one-shot like horror story that are so unsettling and just, they just put me on edge, like in broad daylight. Sometimes I would start thinking about them and get like at school and get like so freaked out, but like a good freaked out. Anyways, and then you'd come back and she'd be like, "Whoa, wasn't that scary? Time for lesson number 2. And I think since then I've always like really been freaked out, especially like all Asian horror. Like there's a really scary like Thai horror movie that I've watched so many times because it just like puts you on edge. Like you never see the ghost, but like it's there, you know? So anyways, that is to say, I gave The Graveyard Apartment a 4 stars. Something I do really find with Japanese literature in general is that they, like Japanese authors, like this is a generalization, but I feel like I've seen it a lot, is that they like to leave books open for interpretation. And like the end was very ambiguous. There were a lot of loose ends hanging, like things that when I was reading it, I expected it to go a certain way. And then it was like, oh my god, I have 5% left and I have all these questions and I know they're not gonna get answered. But I feel like that's like how a lot of Japanese books I read go. Like they just like to leave things open for interpretation. But anyways, it was pretty good. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. But now that just leaves me feeling like I really want to read something lighter. Just a little lighter. I was gonna start The Sword of Kaigen, but it's like a 630 something page fantasy. And I didn't want to start another series just yet because I actually want to do a series reading the Foxhole Court, like a video of reading the Foxhole Court. So I don't think I want to start another series right now just because, especially like with Villains and Virtues, I liked it so much I had to read them in succession. I've kind of always been like that. Like I think some people can read the first book in a series, go to a different series, come back for the second. No, I gotta all or nothing, right? So since I already know I want to read the Foxhole Court series, I think that's what it's called, I think I want something to kind of loosen up the brain a little bit, and then I'll go to Sword of Kaigen. So let me show you what I'm gonna read next. What I want to read next is Not in Love by Hazelwood. Do I know anything about this book? No. Do I think the covers are a little chuggy? Just a little bit. But if you know me in real life, you know Love theoretically is one of my favorite books of all time. Like there's just something about the male lead and like that he does kind of look like Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen. Anyways, and also it takes place in Boston, so it was really fun to like imagine like where she was. Like if you've seen the, like if you've read the book, you know there's a series, like a scene where she's running through the common in Beacon Hill, like away from the movie theater, and it's just like I can imagine that. I can imagine her doing that. That being said, I just eat up anything this woman writes. She has like quite a few other things. Like I've read Bride, loved it. The Love Hypothesis, gateway drug into Hazelwood. So now we're gonna go for a physical book now instead of reading on my Kindle. So I'll check back in with the timer. Hey everyone, I wanted to do another little check-in. Please ignore the egg stuff going on.
I put hair oil in. Anyways, I am still reading Not in Love by Hazelwood, but I went to work and I wanted to bring my book with me, and I couldn't have two people like canoodling on the cover with me at work for all my coworkers to see. So I started alternating between reading the Unabridged Journals of Sylvia Plath, which is a thick boy, which I know I'm not going to get done in this like little like experiment challenge thing I'm doing. But I started reading Not in Love at hour 15, and then at 17 hours and 45 minutes, that's when I stopped reading it. At 17 hours and 45 minutes, I started reading the Unabridged Journals of Sylvia Plath, and I'm up to 19 hours now. So I'm probably going to try to finish Not in Love today or within the next few days, and then I'll probably end with this. And I want to look a little nicer before I start telling some thoughts on this one. So I'll check back in with you guys later. Checking in at hour 21. About 30 minutes ago, I finished Not in Love by Hazelwood, and while I did give it 4 out of 5 stars because I love Allie's writing, I love the world she creates, it's my least favorite of her books. And I've tried filming this specific like review probably 5 times just because I'm having such a hard time formulating my thoughts about it. Because, I don't know, I don't really think it's any fault of the authors. She gave me what she said she was gonna give. So basically, Rue and Eli, our main characters, they meet because they're meeting up for a one-night stand. And things go wrong, so they don't end up, hooking up. They, part ways, think they're never gonna see each other again. And then the next day, Eli shows up to Rue's work because his company has bought the loan for her friend's company, and now they're kind of taking over. And so that just turns them into, in her eyes, instant enemies. And I was having this thought earlier that is this considered second chance romance? Because they part ways in the first chapter. Again, think they're never gonna see each other again. Rue's like, I'm never seeing that man again. And Eli's like, damn, I'm probably never seeing that girl again. And then obviously they're thrust together in different situations, so they have to reconnect. So do you guys think that's considered second chance romance? I think I would consider it that. But do you think for it to be considered second chance romance, there has to be time in between, or that they have to have had a relationship first? I'd like to hear opinions, but I'm gonna grab my phone real quick because I have thoughts. So I wrote them down because I wanted to kind of have some talking points. I'm just about the whole like how it does kind of come with that premise of they are very sexually attracted to each other, and that's like kind of what continuously fuels the relationship. I just don't like that type of stuff. So knowing that that was what I was getting into and maybe expecting it to change my mind about that or to enjoy it more was on me. So I didn't really enjoy that aspect of this. And I also thought, so first of all, I will say, not even first of all, we're getting pretty deep into this. Eli Kilgore is probably one of my favorite of her, Hazelwood's male leads. Like, not my favorite book, and I would say Rue is probably one of my least favorite female leads, but Eli, oh my god, he also, it's another one of those things where he has a younger sister who's obviously a lot older versus like in Bride with Lo and Misery, how Lo has a really young little sister. This is different, but I do love that trope. But I think to avoid making him seem like an asshole, because he's like obviously like super into her and just kind of really wants to sleep with her,
she kind of veers into the territory of insta-love, in my opinion, because obviously he's having these really like racy thoughts about her, but then it also like veers into the like, I want to cook her breakfast, like I want to do anything she'd ever like ask me to, fold her clothes, like that type of stuff. And I'm like, okay, queen, like I see what she was doing, because she couldn't just make him like have dirty thoughts and then expect us to root for him. But I thought it did kind of teeter-totter on that. Meanwhile, Rue, she evened it out a little better. But again, I didn't really like Rue. I didn't really like her, like reading from her point of view. But what else do I have? I also felt the plot of, if you had read Love Theoretically, like there's kind of a mentor situation where the mentor isn't really looking out for the female main lead's best interest, and you learn that through the male lead, and that's very similar to something that happens in this book as well. And I did feel it was a little bit repetitive, but I did like that plot line. I do eat that type of stuff up, but I really wish, spoiler, giving you a second, I do wish Florence hadn't been what she ended up being, because in Love Theoretically, spoiler again, Elsie's mentor, who ends up being like actually evil and is like actively working against her, I just felt like having both of those, maybe it's true in the world of STEM that everyone's kind of pushing each other down to get up, but I just think if Florence hadn't like done what she did to get back at Rue taking Eli's side, I would have liked that a little better. But again, I'm not telling this woman how to write her books. Miss Hazelwood, keep doing what you're doing. Don't listen to me. Just keep doing what you're doing. As if she's like seated on the other side watching this review. Anyways, I wrote that this still has that millennial chuggy humor that Allie Hazelwood does best. And there's a scene where Maya, Eli's little sister, she says, wow, you sound like such a millennial. And it's like, in like Eli's thoughts, she said the last word as if it was an insult. And I'm like, oh my god, self-aware queen. But that was really funny. Oh, where did my note go? What I will say about Rue too, I want to put this girl in a rage room, give her a bat, and just let her go ham. I think that's what Rue deserves. I think that would solve a lot of her frustrations if I just let her do that. But I will also, let me find the chapters for you, that chapter 22 and chapter 33. Go read those. All right, that was my little check-in. I'm still reading the unabridged journals of Sylvia Plath. I'm planning on just powering through the next 3 hours of reading that and probably do another last minute wrap-up check-in. So stay tuned. I'll see you soon. Hi. Hello. Can you hear her? All right, back for the last check-in of this challenge. I did finish the 24-hour challenge, experiment, whatever you want to call it, but I got to page 133 in the unabridged journals of Sylvia Plath. I'm only on August 20th of, I want to say 1952, and the first journal starts July of 1950. So I only got 2 years into, I believe, the 10 years of her life that this covers. It took it's taking me a bit longer because look how small those words are. And a lot of times it's very much like string of consciousness because, you know, she's writing about her life. And then you also have to go to the back a lot of times where they've put in notes because she just uses like first names or she'll refer to something in her life, obviously because she didn't think that people were going to be reading her personal journals, you know, 50, 70, oh my god, 70 years down the line. So they have like a little appendix in the back where it kind of tells you who she's talking about, which is absolutely crazy to me. Like, I have a journal, my camera's actually balancing on it right now, part of the stack of books of how I have to record things. But I cannot imagine my journals being read ever by anyone who's not me. Sometimes I have had the thought like, oh, maybe my daughter will read these one day, or maybe, I don't think sons are typically that into their mother's journals, but whatever, like maybe like, you know, a relative will read it one day, but never did I ever think it would get to this extent, which also brings me to my thought, like, I obviously love her writing. I was very much a bell jar girl, you know, she just embodies like the sad lover girl, like Tumblr era. I know that's a horrible way to describe Sylvia Plath, but I really think she would have enjoyed Tumblr and like vague posting or vague tweeting about people. But it's just like the things she goes through are very, like, it is the female experience of, let me see if I can find some things. Like, I have the choice of being constantly active or happy, or introspectively passive and sad, or I can go mad by ricocheting in between. And just like certain things that she writes are so relatable that one of my friends, like, I didn't want to recommend her this book because I thought she might relate to it a little too hard, which is like such a weird thing, but it's like, I don't want reasons to make her any more sad, right? But then this also just like justifies the feelings of teenage girls. Like, she also wrote like how we need another soul to cling to, another body to keep us warm, to rest and trust, to give your soul and confidence. I need this. I need someone to pour myself into. And this isn't, she's not writing a romance book. That's just like how she feels. And I'm really enjoying it. But a point I wanted to bring up is, how am I supposed to give this book, or just in general, autobiographies, like, ratings, you know what I mean? Like, can I really say like, oh, you had a 4-star life, you had a 5-star life, and knowing how this woman's life ends, that in general it doesn't seem right to be giving a rating to somebody's life, but that also feels quite inappropriate to give a rating to this woman's life. But I am slowly but surely going to finish it. I am gonna kind of, I think, go read a few other books in between. So hopefully when I do a reading wrap up at some point, I can tell you more about it. Hopefully I can have more cohesive thoughts than what I just gave you. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this. It was really funny. Like, I think my average amount of time that I read in one sitting was about 15 minutes. So I could read for a stream of 15 minutes, then I would take a break to go get something, to walk around, to go on my phone. So I'd stop the timer and then I'd start it again. Let me show you my full, every book that I wrote it down. All right, so I did a horrible job of time stamping things, but I believe it took me about 5 hours to read Summoned to the Wilds by A.K. Kajino. I started on page 58 when I started this challenge, so I was about a fourth into the book already, maybe a little bit less. Then it took me from about 5 hours to 10.5 hours to read Eclipse of the Crown, the third book in that series, also by A.K. Kajino. Then from 10.5 hours to 11 hours, I read The Prophet. Then from 11.5 hours to 15 hours, I read The Graveyard Apartment. From 15 to 20.5. Oh, this was where I also read Not in Love, and I flip-flop back and forth between Not in Love and The Unabridged Journals of Sylvia Plath. And then I finished off by reading this. That was a very messy way of saying I read 4 starting again. That was a very messy way of saying that I read 5 full books and got 100 pages in to a 6th book. So that was just kind of interesting because I know I am historically a really fast reader. That works sometimes not in my favor because I will be just consuming the book so quickly because I want to get to the ending that I, you know, flub up and I have to go back and read it again to make sense of it. But it was really interesting to see how many I could get done in these 24 hours. Obviously, I think the next step is I do have to pull a 24-hour readathon and see if I can actually achieve that. But I'll have to find time for that when, you know, I don't have a bunch of work to do. But thank you so much if you've stuck around for this long. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram for more bookish content. And I will see you guys next time.